Hey everyone. Yeah, I've got about 23 minutes before my bus comes. I got off at 2:30 today, so gotta wait for a 3:17 bus. I would have done a dollar ride, except I don't know if I'm pretty sure I would have got it, but knowing my luck, they would have said they were booked up. But I thought I'd kill some time and talk about something that I mentioned in a video I did a couple of days ago. See, over the weekend, Phantom Strider did a top 6 worst Netflix cartoons list, basically listing off what he felt were the 6 worst animated programming or animated shows that Netflix is currently airing as part of the service, exclusively airing as part of the service. And it got me thinking, well, that's his opinion, but it got me thinking about other animated shows from the past 20, 30 years that I believe could benefit from a proper reboot and could benefit from being shown exclusively on Netflix or services like it. And I gave off a decent list. Phantom Strider even Strider commented on it and even liked, and hopefully we tweeted the tweet with the link to the video in it. But one of those shows that I talked about was the number 9 show that I feel could benefit from a reboot on Netflix, an exclusive reboot on Netflix, and that was Hasbro's Inhumanoids. Like I said, that was Hasbro's Inhumanoids. And the reason I say that is because from what people like James Rolfe of Cinemassacre, the Angry Video Gaming Nerd, has said about it, what people like Rob from Planet Rob and Rob Watches has said about it, amongst many others, amongst what others have said, besides some on YouTube, videos, various uploading video sites, and even editorial-wise through message boards, DeviantArt, you name it. A lot of people pretty much agree that Inhumanoids kind of got the short end of the stick. Basically, what I mean is Inhumanoids didn't get a chance to really branch out or really evolve or really expand on what was given. Now, I can understand that Inhumanoids, just like James said and just like Rob said and amongst many others have said, Inhumanoids was a little over the top. Well, maybe more than just a little over the top. But Inhumanoids basically kind of crossed the line that at the time you would think would be okay, because there are other shows out there that kind of crossed the line a little bit with episodes and the content they had and even the storytelling. But Inhumanoids seemed to hit a nerve because they were in fact, and I'm not saying this because, there weren't any others like it, because there were. But Inhumanoids for a fact was probably the very first animated horror show or horror program meant for kids that kind of in the eyes of the parental groups was beyond being a show for kids. And I can't really disagree with them with it, because we all say that Transformers the movie was violent for what it was. It was a lot darker than what you got in the show. And that later on, seasons like seasons 3 and even a bit of season 4 kind of showcased a little bit of that darkness that came out of the movie. But Inhumanoids was pretty much dark and violent right from the get-go. And honestly, I don't blame some parental groups or parents for complaining. But the thing is, you can't blame Hasbro, really. You see, Hasbro at that time, even to this day, one of the main focuses when it comes to any spin-off of the product is to use that spin-off mainly to sell toys. Friendship is Magic is a good example of that. Friendship is Magic has gone beyond being more than just has gone on to be more than just product placement or product advertisements for the My Little Pony toys, and it's taken on a life of its own. But back then, that's mainly what Hasbro's goal most of the time was, to sell toys. Why do you think Transformers the movie, as good as it was in the eyes of many fans who grew up with it, kind of got crapped on a little bit at times by even those same fans at a younger age. Yeah, we liked it, but we also kind of were disappointed in it because it was taking away a lot of our favorite characters that we had known. But the reason that was happening is because Hasbro had a mandate and an edict that the movie had to introduce the newer characters, thus the newest toys. So when one thinks about Inhumanoids was basically doing its job. It was trying to sell toys. As gross as some of the toys as out there and as gross as some of the toys were, that's what they were doing. They were doing the job to sell toys. That's what the show was doing. Yeah, was it over the top in its violent content at times? Absolutely. I mean, heck, you had one character, from what I understand, that a human antagonist, not the main one, but a human antagonist, fall into a pit of acid or lava or something like that, and the next thing you see is nothing more than his bones just floating up to the top. You see his I think what is this? The outfit he was wearing, and then next to it you see these bones float to the top. Basically, there he is, completely dead now, or something like that. So again, I don't really blame parental groups for being a little upset, but again, Hasbro was just doing their job in selling toys. That's all they were doing. But when I mentioned Inhumanoids on my list of shows that could benefit from a reboot and be exclusive on Netflix or services like it, I truly mean that. I mean, Inhumanoids, like I said, kind of got the shaft a little bit because of its violent content. But nowadays, Netflix would be glad to probably take something like that on and have no problem showing it and letting it grow into something probably more than what it was intended to be. I mean, take a look what they're doing. Take a look what they've done with Castlevania. Castlevania is based on the Castlevania video game, but within the span of just 4 to 5 episodes, has basically proven to be more than that. It's taken on its life of its own. It's taken on a life of its own, and it's taken on a life of its own, and people have been praising it for that, for the fact that it's gone beyond just being something based on a video game series and it's basically become more than that. And one of the things that they do praise it for, as crazy as it sounds, is its violent content. Is its violent content. That's what they praise. That's one of the things, as crazy as it sounds, that they're praising it for. The fact that it's more violent than even than the series originally intended it to be, in its original video game form. So yeah, by praising it and giving it positive feedback, Castlevania has taken on a life of its own and become something more than I guess they would have intended, and there's no doubt it's going to get another season. Voltron Legendary Defender has done the same thing. Legendary Defender basically is a reboot of the Voltron franchise. And even though some people may say, well, how is it a reboot? Princess Aurora wasn't a pilot of any of the Lions at first. No, she wasn't a pilot at first, but come around the 3rd season, they did do that. What they did is they did something that the original Voltron, even in its uncut original Japanese Go Lion format, has never done. They took time to allow us to get to know the characters. It took time for revelations, origins, and all that to be told. It took time to let us get to know the universe that they were part of. And only after that was all said and done did it give us the moments that we knew the original to be about. It gave us the moments of Aurora being the pilot of the Blue Lion. True, they changed certain things up. Like, I think Keith is not piloting the Lion right now. Maybe I'm wrong. And it's the other guy that was taken out in the original that's piloting the Black Lion now. You get the idea. Basically, it may have taken up to about 3 seasons, but at least they're giving fans something recognizable. What they've done, though, is they basically took their time in the seasons that followed, in the seasons that came before, I should say, to expand on the universe, expand on the characters. You know, basically allow us to get to know who they are, what the mission is, what the universe is, who the adversaries are, stuff like that. And when I look at Inhumanoids, I look at something that could potentially have the same effect. Here is something that ran for about 13 episodes or less before it got canceled because of its violent tone, that if it came back today could really benefit from something like being a Netflix exclusive. You can even give it a freaking PG or MA rating if they wanted to. They can make history, or a TV-14 rating if they wanted to. They could do that. They could give it a TV-14 rating if they wanted to, or a PG rating, or an MA rating, whatever you want to call it. Probably more so 14, more so probably between TV, PG, and TV-14. They can give it any one of those ratings if they wanted to. Why? Because then that would allow them to expand a lot more on the Inhumanoids universe. It would allow them to expand more so than they were allowed to back originally in the 80s. You know, one thing I've talked about before, and one thing I've mentioned I think before when I've talked about Inhumanoids, and you could check out anything that I've talked and you could check out any of the Inhumanoid videos that I've done here on my channel. But one of the things I talked about with Inhumanoids, and I think James Rolfe mentioned this, and I believe Rob mentioned this, and many others that have talked about Inhumanoids have mentioned, one of the things that always got to me about any kind of show like this is, despite its limitation, you were always left with plot holes. You were always left with questions unanswered. One of the questions that was left unanswered, unless they did answer it, was why in the world would Herman Armstrong, Herc, or Hooker was his code name on the Earth Corps side, which were the main protagonist, the main freedom fighting team, if you will, why would he allow Sandra Shore, who is the sister of the main antagonist, Blackthorn, why would he constantly allow her to go on missions with them, or even be part of the team, despite the fact that, yes, she is financing them, she's bankrolling them, she's financing their operations. Even with that, why would he allow her to be part of the team, knowing, not once but twice, one of the main monstrous antagonists, Inhumanoids, if you will, one of the main Inhumanoid antagonists, called Decompose, has not once but twice touched her, and by touching her and chanting his name or saying his name 2 to 3 times, turned her into an undead skeletonified monster, or skeletonified zombie monster. Why would someone like him do that? Now again, unless they haven't addressed it in the original, fine, but I've never noticed it. And that's something that if a reboot was to be done, I would be addressed right off the bat after the first or second time it occurs. I would have a story, and this is one thing that, again, Netflix has done right when it comes to shows like Voltron and even Castlevania, I believe. They've allowed for more backstory, more subplots and story arcs to be formed and focused on and created, unlike the originals intended them to be. And if I was to bring Inhumanoids back, if I was to bring them back, and let's say, in fact, I would encourage the fact that they use the same storytellers, the same creative team that's working on Voltron Legendary Defender, because they also worked on the Avatar series and the Korra series. I would definitely bring them in to do the Inhumanoids reboot, as well as maybe do the animation for it as well. Bringing that same animation studio to come in and do the animation for the show. That's what I would do. But my thing is, I would, if I was part of that creative process, I would create a story arc, or at least a sub arc, where I would have Herman Armstrong take Sandra Shore, because it's obvious, it's obvious to the watcher, to the viewer, that there is something between the two. But I would take Sandra Shore. I would do a sub arc where I'd have Herman Armstrong, Hooker, if you will, take Sandra Shore aside and say, look, Decompose has turned into an undead monstrosity not once but twice. I don't want to chance him doing it again, so until he's out of the picture, or until at least there's a mission where he's not involved, he's not one of the Inhumanoid monsters we have to fight, I don't want you on the battlefield. I don't want you going on the mission. And you know what? Knowing the people that work on Avatar and Korra, and they're currently working on Voltron, they could probably make something out of that. They could probably make a good story arc or sub arc out of that, to where when she's not on missions, you can have Sandra Shore finance ways of basically trying to develop a new kind of suit that would prevent her and the rest of the Earth Corps team from being infected by Decompose. You could have her have like a little background story arc or subplot where she's developing or finding a way, or basically where she's financing the development of these outfits, or this armor that would protect her and the rest of the Earth Corps from being infected by Decompose. And heck, you can even have the episode where it gets revealed, where you debut these things, where she's wearing the outfit, but it looks like her original, and just when Decompose touches her, he notices nothing's happening. She acts like something's happening, but then maybe she looks up and Decompose and say, "Gotcha." And that's when it could be revealed, and that's where basically she could reveal, that while she was put on the sidelines because Decompose would always be involved in a fight against the Earth Corps, she was secretly having these suits developed, and now there is nothing that Decompose can do to change them. There's nothing that Decompose can do to turn him into any kind of monstrosity. Now you might say, well, what if he takes her helmet off? That's where part of the armor would come in. Like as soon as the helmet would go off, maybe some kind of helmet or armor head would build up around her and thus prevent her from being touched. I mean, that in a sense is storytelling right there. That's story arc telling 101 almost. Because you're basically finding a way around the situation, and you're kind of creating some bit of conflict and drama and all that. The thing is also, you can do a lot more, from an origin standpoint of how these Inhumanoids came to be. You could do a lot more of an origin standpoint as far as each member or significant member of the Earth Corps team goes. You could do so much. And you can go in places and areas that originally you never thought you could go to, or even attempt to go to. And to me, Inhumanoids being rebooted on Netflix or a service like that with Hasbro's backing, as well as with the same creative team and animation team behind Korra and Avatar, I think could really benefit it. I think could really, as well as behind Voltron, I should say, Voltron Legendary Defender, could really help it, and really, it could benefit from that in the long run. Like I said, it could really benefit from that in the long run, because like I said, it is any creative team besides those working on like My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, and a few other shows that know how to really get your attention as far as character development, story arcs, drama, you name it, action, adventure, in-depth storytelling, origins, origin setting, whatever, it would be the creative team behind Korra, behind the Legend of Korra, and Avatar: The Last Airbender, as well as Voltron Legendary Defender. I may have not seen, the shows entirely, but from what people have said, these are the kind of shows you definitely will definitely have to invest into, because they will grab your attention and never let go. So if they could do that, then I can only imagine what they can do for an Inhumanoids reboot. Again, I'm not saying, that My Little Pony Friendship is Magic doesn't have good storytelling. It does. It's obviously been shown over the past 7 seasons, as well as with the movie. So if you want to bring them in to do the storytelling for an Inhumanoids reboot, fine. But I look at the fact that if you really want to get dark and mature and really just psychological and all that, and really go in depth and stuff, probably more so than you could expect, then I would say get the people behind Voltron Legendary Defender, get the people behind Voltron Legendary Defender, Avatar: The Last Airbender, and Legend of Korra. Get the animation team that did the animation for all 3 shows, and I guarantee you would have a hit. Netflix exclusively would have a hit on their hands as far as an Inhumanoids reboot is concerned. They would. There is no doubt in my mind they would. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think an Inhumanoids reboot could work? And do you think the people behind Voltron, Avatar, and Legend of Korra could really make it work for Netflix exclusively, animation-wise and story-wise? Let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like. My bus is here. I'm getting ready to go home. I'll talk to y'all later.